Hello, 7th graders. It's Mrs. Trombley. It's time for lesson 2.2a. Yes, it's been broken up into 2 sections. Again, too much for one section, we thought. So today we're just going to focus on adding and subtracting decimals, which you might be thinking, I've done that before. Why are we learning this again? Well, today, some of those decimals that you're going to be adding and subtracting are going to contain negative values. So basically, we're just applying some old background knowledge to something new. So you kind of already know how to do this. I know, it'll be great. So just to kind of activate that prior background knowledge, here's an addition problem with decimals. And in the past, you have learned that when you're adding decimals, you put the larger digit on the top. Normally, it makes it a little bit easier. And we line up the decimal point when we're writing the other digit. So we're lining up those decimal points, and the larger value is on top. Do you remember what property says that I can switch the order of these numbers I'm adding? Commutative, you say? Yes, that's right. Very good. Okay, now we want to go ahead and add these, and we just add these like you did back in the day. Remember, when there's not a value there, it's kind of like there's really a 0 there. And 6 plus 0 is 0. And 4 plus 5 is 9, and 0 plus 2 is 2. We drop down the decimal point. 3 plus 3 is 6, 4 plus 1 is 5, and 1 plus nothing is 1. And you are done. You also learned how to subtract decimals. And with this one, we can't just go flipping the order around, right? We have to write it the way it appears. It's always easier to write those vertically, so that's what I'm going to do. So first number, 61 400ths. And I'm supposed to subtract 7 409 thousandths from that. The 7 needs to go underneath that 1 because they're in the same place. And then I have a 4, a 0, and a 9. Now when we're subtracting, I can't go forwards and backwards too. So I can't say, well, 9 minus 0 is 9. Remember, the number on the top is what you start with. If there's nothing there, it means there's nothing there. There's a 0. You can't take 9 away from 0, so we need to borrow. So if I'm borrowing from the 4, that's now going to become 3, and I have 10 here. So 10 minus 9 is 1, 3 minus 0 is 3, and here again, I can't take 4 away from 0, so I need to borrow. When you borrow from that 1, it becomes 0. Carry it over. So 10 minus 4, that's 6. Drop down the decimal point. I can't take 7 away from 0. Now, some of you in this problem, you would just say, well, 60 minus 7, right? That's 53. Some of you, if you didn't pick up on that, would borrow from the 6, call it a 5, and 10 minus 7 is 3, and 5 minus nothing is 5. Either way, we get the correct answer. So you have learned how to do those problems. We're going to use that information today. And you've also learned your integer rules. You learned how to add and subtract positive and negative whole numbers. So just to kind of review that, when you see a problem like negative 7 plus 10, you learn that when you have one of each sign and you're adding, that you actually subtract the digits. So what you would actually do is take the higher value minus the lower value, right? 10 minus 7, and that's 3, and you take the sign of the higher digit. You learn that when you are adding 2 negative digits, that all you did was add the digits, so 12 plus 5 is 17, and you kept the sign. You also learned that all of your subtraction problems need to be changed to addition problems, right? So this would become negative 4, keep, change, and that was a negative 6, we're going to make it a positive 6. So again, this is an addition problem now. We use those integer rules for addition. When you see that you have one of each sign, then you subtract the digits. You take the higher minus the lower, and 6 minus 4 is 2, and you keep the sign of the larger digit, which in this case was a positive. So basically, you're going to take both of those concepts and allow those to help you with today. So your job is to add and subtract decimals containing negative decimals. The very first thing that you should do, just like before, is you should rewrite subtraction as addition by adding the opposite. So we're still going to keep change. Leave addition alone. You don't have to change addition. You learned maybe the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Addition problems are not broken. Leave them alone. If the signs are the same, you're going to add the numbers by writing them vertically with the greater absolute value on top. and then bring the sign in after you've already added. So same signs, add normally, keep the signs. If the signs are different, you're going to subtract the numbers by writing them vertically with the greater value on top. For example, when we did this problem here and we had to subtract because of the different signs, we didn't take 7 minus 10, we took 10 minus 7, right? So that's what I mean. 10 has a greater absolute value than 7. So we take the higher absolute value minus the lower absolute value, and then we just keep the sign of whatever digit has the higher absolute value, whatever you have more of. And it's always good to ask yourself, does my answer make sense? And you can just kind of estimate, like, about what should my answer be with these, and usually figure out quite a bit. You can catch errors if you make any. All right, so let's try a few examples of this. Turn your page. Here we go. Just 4 of them. I have 2 addition, 2 subtraction. So if you're looking at those little rules, for step 1, it says rewrite subtraction as addition by adding the opposite. We don't have to do that, do we? It's already addition. Okay, so all set. It says that the signs are the same. We get to go ahead and add those. I'm going to put the larger on top, but I don't have the same signs. I have 2 different signs. If the signs are different, step 3 says subtract the numbers by writing them vertically with the greater value on the top. So in looking at this, there's 2 different signs I need to subtract. And just like when you had negative 7 plus 10, you did 10 minus 7. This one has, this 15.3 has a higher absolute value than 12.5. So I'm going to write 15.3 on the top. And since the signs are different, I'm going to subtract and just ignore the signs. We're just using the signs to help us with the answer at the end. So ignore the signs. I'm going to subtract this 12.5 from it. All right, and then we go back to what you had started off reviewing at the beginning of this lesson. We're just going to do straight up subtraction. I can't take 5 away from 3, so I'm going to borrow from this 5. And now I have 13 minus 5. 13 minus 5 is 8. I'm going to bring down my decimal point. 4 minus 2 is 2. 1 minus 1 is nothing. I don't need to put that down there. So I have 2.8. Now look at your original problem. In the original problem, the higher digit was positive. That means my answer is a positive 2.8. All right, let's try another one. I have 65 hundredths plus negative 2 and 75 hundredths. It's an addition problem. I don't need to change it, but now I have to decide, am I going to add those digits or am I going to subtract those digits? Remember, you learned when you have one of each and you're adding, you actually have to subtract. So when you subtract these digits, we're going to write them vertically. I'm going to put the larger absolute value on top and ignore the signs for now. So negative 2.75 has a larger absolute value than 0.65. See how this has a 0 in the ones place and that has a 2 in the ones place? So I'm going to write 2 and 75 hundredths on top. And I want to subtract this lower absolute value from it, lining up my decimal points. So I ignored the negative sign on this for now. We'll bring it back at the end. Now go ahead and we'll subtract. 5 minus 5 is 0. 7 minus 6 is 1. Bring down your decimal point. 2 minus 0 is 2. So you get 2.10. We know that our answer is supposed to be negative because this digit here is larger than that digit, and that's negative. So my answer is going to be negative. And then we have 2.10. You know that we usually drop those zeros when they're just written at the end going. So negative 2.1. If you wrote negative 2.10, it would not be wrong. It's just, you don't need to. That's that. All right, let's try some subtraction. It said on step number 1 to rewrite all subtraction as addition by adding the opposite. So your first step should be just to go right ahead and rewrite this. So keep, change, change. Okay, so now we see that it's an addition problem, right? We're adding 2 digits with the same sign. And it says that if the signs are the same, we just need to write those numbers vertically and bring in the sign afterwards. It's going to be a negative answer. So I'm going to write the larger absolute value on top. That would be this 1.46. I'm going to ignore the signs for now. And because the signs are the same, I get to add those digits together. So I'll line up the decimal points. And then we're just going to add like normal. So again, we're adding them because the signs are the same. After we've changed it to addition, I'm adding a negative and a negative. 6 plus 4 is 10. 6 plus 4 is 10, plus that 1 makes 11. I'm going to bring down my decimal, and 1 plus 1 plus 0 is 2. Oh, it's crazy. That's the answer we had last time. All right, but this time, I'm adding 2 negatives, so that means my answer is going to be negative. And again, we just said we can write 2.10 as just plain old 2.1 to be negative 2.1. Last but not least, this is subtraction, so step 1, let's change it. So I'm going to keep that first digit the same, change subtraction to addition, and now this was a negative 1 600ths, so I'm going to make it a positive 1 600ths. So this and this have the same value, this is just easier to work with. Now, same signs, right? They're both positive. I'm going to write the larger digit on top, and since the signs are the same, I just get to add those digits together. So lining up that decimal point. Remember, if there's nothing there, it means that the number that represents nothing is there. There's really a 0 there. 6 plus 0 is 6. 0 plus 2 is 2. Bring down the decimal point. And 1 plus nothing is 1. And remember we said that signs are the same. We add the digits, keep the sign. That means that my answer is a positive 1 2600ths. That's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow.